Hey guys, Henry here, and today we're going to be talking about the latest Spider-Man film, Spider-Man Far From Home, going into details as to my thoughts and feelings on the film, discussing the characters and the plot, so just a warning, there will be spoilers. So, Spider-Man Far From Home is once again directed by Jon Watts and stars Tom Holland as Spider-Man and picks up right after the events of Endgame. There's a quick explainer that everyone that wasn't dusted has progressed in high school, so there's a bit of a funny twist that some people that Peter and his friends knew that were little kids are now teenagers in their class. So their class go on a school trip to Europe. Peter's main goal of this trip is to finally admit his feelings to MJ. But of course, in superhero fashion, shit goes down, Spider-Man needs to step up, and in classic Spider-Man fashion, he faces the dilemma of balancing being a superhero with his own personal life. So, right off the bat, I have to say that this was a really fun movie. The comedy in this film was on point, the jokes landed, but I have to say it was funny in a weird clinical way. The pacing was really good, the jokes kept coming and they just kept hitting, but I did feel that the jokes were a little bit derivative and formulaic, and that was the way that the movie went about producing laughs. It didn't feel that organic. It didn't feel like the comedy came from the context, rather it felt like the comedy came when someone just delivered a line, or a moment just happened, or when it feels like the plot is stalling a little bit and they just chuck in something funny to have everyone giggle and laugh and forget about the weird thing that just happened. And as we know, Jake Gyllenhaal plays Mysterio. And in the trailers, he is portrayed as a good dude, trying to help Spider-Man save the world, but actually, no, he's the villain. So the Mysterio twist. I was expecting the twist to come. I mean, it's Mysterio. I don't think too many Marvel or Spider-Man fans were really believing that the Elementals were the real villains of the movie. But I just wasn't sure how the twist would pan out. So it turns out that Mysterio was slighted by Tony Stark and is now evil. Sounds a little bit familiar, but okay. Now, the scene in which he's in the bar explaining all of this to his employees or whatever is just a complete exposition dump. And it's a lot of info. And it's, again, the problem of show don't tell. I feel like they were actually able to show and demonstrate how he uses the drones to project and essentially create realistic and damage generating illusions. They didn't really need him to give like a 5-minute speech as to like how everything works and how he managed to trick everyone and his whole backstory. I was pleasantly surprised with the direction they went, using the idea of drones doing the projections. Like, it's a sort of modern take on Mysterio's powers, and I thought him as a villain, even though he didn't have any real superpowers, the art of deception is enough. That's sort of a commentary on the internet and social media today, how that people can use that power and harness that power to do terrible things and trick people and yeah, all that jazz. They also weaved his backstory in quite well, the Marvel Universe, him being the creator of the bath technology that Tony Stark uses, but it did feel a little bit convenient, but it's a comic book movie, so I mean, whatever. The Mysterio illusion sequences were stunning, visually stunning, and the way that they integrated reality and flicking back and forth, filling in the gaps for the audience, showing us how Mysterio's powers actually work, and making Mysterio's powers really engaging as well as being comprehensible. The worst thing would have been if the illusions were happening and all this shit is happening to Spider-Man, and the audience is just sitting there the entire time thinking, wait, how's this actually working? Is Spider-Man like hallucinating or what's going on? But the way it was shown really demonstrated how the illusions were actually generated, how the illusions actually created damage, and how essentially Mysterio got away with his plan and not being caught at all. I did, however, expect a second twist, Mysterio's plan B. He mentions that he always has contingencies, but we didn't get that in this movie. Instead, we get that in the mid-credit scene, which I'll talk about later. I did want there to be an extra barrier, one more barrier for Spider-Man to overcome, but of course, that might be asking a bit too much. This movie definitely lent into the teenage rom-com genre a lot, with elements of a superhero movie just sprinkled on top. Ned and Betty and their summer romance, falling in love, being cheesy as hell, really provided great levity and great comedy was generated from it. And they went back to this a lot. So this is what I sort of meant by it being a bit clinical and formulaic. They just sort of chucked them in there. They're like, oh, we need a laugh. Just chuck Ned and Betty in there and everyone's going to laugh because that's freaking funny. And it was funny, but it's like, I was like, they're getting me every time, but I feel like I'm getting conned a little bit. It almost got to overuse levels. So it was dangerously close. They just cut it off in time. And other than just being corny as hell, Ned didn't do much in this movie. He just gave Peter some really bad advice and just went off with Betty. And in the previous film, he was the guy in the chair. He was Peter's support. He was Peter's best friend. But in this film, he shifted away from that into just more of a comedic device, and I sort of didn't like that. I really liked Ned's character in the previous film, and I wanted to build off that, but we didn't get that. In regards to Peter and MJ, played by Zendaya, I had some qualms. Other than Zendaya just being awkward and sassy, you don't really see why Peter likes her so much. So it's confusing to me. He seems to really like her, but I don't know why. He claims that she's smart and funny, but rather than have any sense of romantic chemistry between the two, there's just a lot of awkwardness. And I understand, teenagers are awkward. And to be totally honest, Peter's side of the story really makes sense and is relatable. He's planning it out, he's freaking out that she might not like him. He doesn't know what to say when she's right in front of him. But I was a little bit annoyed at their interactions constantly just being weird and awkward and tense, like consistently, like every time they interacted. If there was one more awkward and useless interaction between the two, I would have just been put off their relationship completely. Like 1 to 2 interactions is enough. Like, them being awkward once or twice is enough. They got to get over that. And I wanted to see more of them actually getting to know each other and how MJ was actually going to deal with the fact that she knows that Peter is Spider-Man. So luckily, they do actually break down those barriers, thank God. And their awkwardness starts to grow into something more intimate. And I enjoyed those moments so much more. So now quickly talking about the mid-credit scenes. So Mysterio's backup plan. His backup plan was to blame Spider-Man for everything and to reveal that Peter Parker is Spider-Man and I guess turn the whole world against Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And who else does the reporting of this but J.K. Simmons himself as J. Jonah Jameson? A perfect cameo. Honestly, no one else can play J. Jonah Jameson. That is J.K. Simmons' part. He is the embodiment of that character. It's a really big reveal. I have no idea where they're going to go with this. Everyone knows who Spider-Man is. Everyone probably hates Spider-Man. So it's going to be really interesting to see where they go with this in the future. And I also want to talk about the final post-credit scene. It's revealed that Nick Fury and Maria Hill were actually Skrulls. So they were actually Talos and his wife from Captain Marvel the whole time. Nick Fury was just on some spaceship somewhere doing something I have no idea about, but for sure that spaceship will be part of another Marvel movie down the line. This was funny, but it did change the complexion of the film. If you were to rewatch the film, there would definitely be a different vibe and weight to everything that Samuel L. Jackson said or did, as he actually isn't playing Nick Fury, he's playing Talos the Skrull. But while it's a cool concept, I watched the movie with a friend that hasn't seen Captain Marvel, and that twist, while seemingly small, is actually quite a difference maker, and it's just too confusing to wrap your head around without the proper context. So I'm not too sure how I feel about that. I mean, it's cool to chuck that in. Hopefully it doesn't really have any big repercussions in the universe, but yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Overall, this film is a great time. It's fun, like I said. It's just a fun time. It's heartfelt, it's emotional, and it has great action sequences. It does a great job off the heels of Endgame, a very precarious position to be in following one of the biggest films ever, but the balance between Peter's personal life and superhero life and his fear of having to fill Tony Stark's shoes, as well as Jake Gyllenhaal playing a brilliant Mysterio, really made this movie worthy of following up Endgame. And there is an awesome moment as well, I just want to mention, about Happy playing AC/DC, Back in Black, as Peter starts building his Spider-Man suit and he smiles and he's reminded of how he used to watch his best friend Tony do the exact same thing. That moment was brilliant. This film is funny, it's got great action, it has emotional depth, but I didn't feel like I came out of this movie thinking, wow, this is the best Spider-Man film I've ever seen. I still feel like Into the Spider-Verse and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 was better than this film. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked it, please be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see more content from me, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Let me know what you thought of Spider-Man Far From Home, and let me know where you rank it amongst other Spider-Man films. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.